Going live right now.
Yay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. We apologize for being a couple minutes late. Um, as you know, via Zoom, we are not modeling perfection, so we appreciate your patience. But thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Robert. I use he, him pronouns. And on behalf of the Black Gay Men's Network, we want to thank you to tuning in to our Facebook Live series. And today, BGM presents Love, Sex, and Money. Something I'm super excited about. We have a wonderful guest. We're here with the lovely Adam Stewart, who's also known as Malcolm Lovejoy. He is a one-of-a-kind artist with many talents. He's a journalist, a polyamorous relationship counselor, feminist porn star, porn producer, romantic erotic educator, and we are looking forward to an exciting conversation and hopefully many, many questions from the audience. So please don't feel shy. So as you're getting comfortable and ready for Malcolm to share his thoughts, first and foremost, we did want to ground ourselves in land acknowledgements. So I am tuning into you here from Ottawa, which is on the unceded and unsurrendered territory that belongs to the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. And Malcolm is joining us from Toronto, which is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And certainly in terms of where we are at in discussions about Black Lives Matter and also Indigenous Lives Matter, we certainly want to make sure that we ground ourselves on the land that we are in. We certainly also want to acknowledge the fact that where we are at in terms of addressing anti-Black racism, which requires constant vigilance, attention, and work. And we know that there is many activists, allies, and accomplices that are joining in on discussion and involved in momentum of where we're at. Certainly Black Lives Matter have always mattered. They matter presently and they matter in the future. And so we know a lot of people are invested in the work to bring about systemic change here in Canada and globally. So we want to acknowledge that work that they're doing because it's tiring and the work that we are involved in. And lastly, we want to say Happy Father's Day to all of the fathers, whether that be biologically adoption, whether that be fathers in houses, whether that be in the fatherly advice and direction that we give our peers around us. So much love to folks in the world who are making a difference through parenting in all the ways that it can come. So before moving on to that, I just want to share some housekeeping things with you all. So this is a recorded discussion. We will be uploading this to our YouTube and website pages at BGMN.ca. That's the Black Gay Men's website. So as such, we want folks to share questions. So we won't be sharing your full name. In doing so. And also, if you feel more comfortable, you can also email questions, and we have someone in the background that will be monitoring those. And that's at bgmnontario@gmail.com. Once again, bgmnontario@gmail.com. We'll also be sharing a SurveyMonkey link in the Facebook discussion. That is an evaluation for today's presentation. So please, please, please fill that out. As anyone who lives in Canada or involved in any type of nonprofit work knows that feedback is, first of all, how we inform the programming to make sure that it's meaningful, and also how we get funders and other people to join our work. So we'll remind you all again that at the end. And I think that's all for me in terms of introduction. So without further ado, welcome Malcolm.
Hello. How's it going, Robert?
I'm going good. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Likewise.
Yeah, so first of all, how are you doing?
Honestly, I'm living in my dreams in the midst of a global pandemic. I'm still surprisingly generally living in my dreams. It's difficult kind of maintaining the sexual artist life in Canada, in Toronto, but it's been 8 years so far, and I'm kind of flying. Like I had there was a slow takeoff, but it's happening, and I'm very happy pretty much every day of my life. So whenever people say how am I doing, I don't say fine. I say I'm inside my dreams. Something of that. Usually something like that.
That's wonderful to hear. I appreciate that. Oftentimes, how are you becomes, we pass things off. So it's really refreshing to hear people when you're living in your truth. Why not share it? So that's wonderful.
Brother, I promise you, if there's one thing that I want to do is I want to be a living, breathing example of positive, universal, Black, honest, pure, blessed romantic sexuality. And just whether I become a superstar, huge, famous, or it's just a few people in Canada and the few people that I touch, I just want my example to resonate and just my truth to be heard. The people who have hugged me and touched me and heard me and made love to me and heard me speak, just everything. I'm just really inspired by those heroes in history that were like, I did what I believed with all my heart, no matter how much the society around me kind of fought against it.
I like that. Thank you so much. So it looks like we got the right person for today's discussion, sex, love, and money, huh? Wonderful. So folks who may not be familiar with you and your work, I was, doing some research for today. I'm just in love with your bio on your website, which is malcolmlovejoy.net. For those, please go there, check it out. And you start off with saying, "Welcome to my heart, passionately devoted to giving unprecedented passion for providing safety, satisfaction, sexual education, inspirational artistry, and sweet memories for women, men, and all people exploring their identity and sexuality." Such a powerful statement.
Thank you. Yes, that's me. That's what I'm trying to do.
And the thing about bios is that they're also limiting. We're trying to like very succinctly deduce all the work that we're doing. So how would you explain that, or what would you do to add or expound upon that definition for folks who may not be familiar with, what you set out to do?
To expand upon the definition that I put there?
Yeah, or if you had a chance to add to that or expand or explain it.
Well, one of my favorite books is by a brother named Manning Marable. It's called The Life of Reinvention. It's a Malcolm X story, and it just talks about how many times Malcolm X reinvented himself. I mean, Malcolm X is one of my favorite heroes for sure, and just inspirational Black men, just period. And Malcolm started off, he was like a criminal in the streets, and then he was hustler and break in and enter, and then he goes to jail, and he was a convict, and then he comes out of jail, and then he's an inspirational speaker and an organizer, and then he becomes like a global figure. So he had many versions of himself through life, and I am quite inspired by that. And because I started off being a comic book illustrator, and I dreamt of being an artist. Like most of my childhood, I went to visual art school. So, but then I saw a lot of limitations in there, and I was just like, I didn't see too many Black artists in Canada. I'm 42 now, so in the 80s, I didn't see too many Black artists. So I was like, okay, maybe get into hip hop. So I did hip hop for a while, and the reason that I got into porn was because I saw hip hop be so ignorant about Black sexuality. Hip hop still to this day has never really had a mature conversation about the in the 90s. They framed it as this phenomena called the gay rapper, and it was a skit that Derek D. Angeletti did, and like, if some people know, it goes back, and it was supposed to be like a singular rapper. It was one gay rapper, and it was just really like a kind of gimmicky, ignorant, facetious approach to the concept of gayness in hip hop. And one, I was like, my gaydar is going off on tons of my heroes, and I'm like, it's not limiting them to me. I'm like, I love you. I want you to be out. Like, I'm queer. I'm cool with gayness. Like, and I see you as like a Black gay superstar, but like, the elephant in the room is that nobody's talking about Puff. What if Puff Daddy was gay? What if Dr. Dre was gay? What if Queen Latifah is gay? And stuff like that. So I just lived hip hop for 20 years and got to the point where I'm like, you know, no one here wants to really just be honest about it and not like disrespect it or use gayness as like a form of slander or whatever. I'm like, no, like gay people are powerful, brilliant, beautiful, artistic, start industries, invented all this stuff. Like they're in hip hop. They have started magazines. They're starting all this. Like such a huge secret in hip hop, but nobody wants to talk about it. And I got really tired of it. So that's when I started doing sex work. So that's like, I'm saying all this to say, like, I kept transforming and I've had different versions of myself. And now in sex work, I'm doing this. And I'm like, I realize that I'm a porn performer, but I also want to do writing and education. And then I also want to direct my own movies. And then I realized I don't want to just direct porn. I want to maybe like just be like RZA, or I mean, Tyler Perry is a very popular Black director, but I don't like his moral aesthetic. It's very heteronormative, and I don't think he really deals with gayness or trans Black people in a modern sense. So, but he's successful, so I acknowledge him. So I'm just saying I want to possibly be a director in the future and direct my own movies and have like polyamorous, trans, queer, Black characters that all have multiple relationships in a movie, and everyone's happy. It's not like making a movie where somebody has to choose between two women and then like they have a like a gay lover and they can't even wind up with their gay lover at the end of the movie. So there's just all kinds of ideas to do. I'm just saying this. I'm going to be creating for my whole life.
Yeah. Being honest, I did have some questions prepared, but you really answered the second question that I had. But in bouncing up to another question that I had in mind to ask you, you really hit on a lot of things. And I think one thing that you said is really powerful is sex workers as educators. I'm glad that, I mean, there's certainly still a lot of stigma and related to sex work and adult film stars and things like that. But I'm glad to be living at a time in which we're having conversations to help break that up and the value that they bring to society. And certainly education and awareness is one of them. And so, in thinking about you wearing many hats and thinking about you being a director and the work that you're doing now, I don't know how much this is a question, but in thinking about being excited about you bringing a feminist lens in your background and being able to provide education to others in ways that other people aren't. So I guess in asking the question, what are some ways that you can see yourself doing that and bringing that to life? Or what are ways that you're educating now your clients and others and how you would want to bring that into other identities that you carry?
I'm trying a variety of things. Like, first and foremost, I was just offering romantic lessons to gentlemen. Actually, you're in Ottawa, so there's a brother in Ottawa, this Somalian brother who would come down to Toronto and actually pay me hourly. He's booked me 3 times, and it was just a wonderful brother who was humble enough to be open to receiving education about intimacy, period. And I would just say, approach me with anything you want to know about sexuality. I will answer you from the perspective that I live it. I will talk about what works for me, what doesn't work for me. I will not say that my way is the only way, but I would just say, hey, if you respect my experience, I will tell you my steps towards healthy sexuality. So he literally came to me with a list and he's like, how do I kiss a woman? How do I ask for anal? How do I, when is it too early to bring gifts? When is it? And he just would bring a list of questions. And I sat there, he paid me $20 an hour at the time, years ago. And I was just trying to build up my clientele. And I was just like, wonderful. A man who's humble enough to keep learning. Because no matter how good I get at porn or sexuality, I'm perpetually a student and a teacher. So I have a lot of information I can give off. I've got tons of books behind me. There's all like I live in a library, but I'm always wanting to teach people. I look at my porn as actually a teaching tool as well. Like it's an entertainment tool, but I find it's an edutainment tool as well. Like it's also educational and entertaining because thankfully I had a pool scene in a sex club in Toronto here with this wonderful local porn star, and we did quite a few fun exotic things in the pool. And then she told me that she was getting bookings after our scene came out, and guys would say, I want to recreate that scene in the pool with you. So I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm just like, in all my scenes, there's balanced sexuality, there's respect, there's passion, there's intimacy, there's intensity. But I'm never slapping someone in a way that they don't want to be slapped. There might be BDSM, but like I'm never doing rude and horrible things. So that's another way that I'm saying I use my porn as a tool to be like, well, if somebody wants to imitate my porn, like the people in my porn are not faking. They are genuinely satisfied. They're happy. Like this is not fraudulent porn whatsoever. This is not plastic porn. So if you like genuinely live in the moment and connect to your partner's body and give your all to them and have physical intimacy, giving every bit of your energy, I'm not going to guarantee that you make them orgasm, but you're probably going to
get there quicker.
Exactly. You're well on your way to genuine timeless memory. So that's what I'm doing. And if you want to steal my style, copy my moves, whatever, go for it. I also want to write books. I'm writing for a website, polyamorytoday.com. I've been writing for them for 6 years. So I write about trans relationships, threesomes, queer life, just everything. So I'm just, to be honest, I just want to be a multimedia machine and just keep pumping out. Wait, I actually have to do a podcast this summer. That's another thing I have to do.
So many ways, yeah, to get that message out. And just a follow-up question to that too, thinking about and listening to what you're saying is that how do you, or maybe some examples of ways that you have to speak to communities or groups different. I'm thinking, as Black people, as Black gay men, which is, what we're involved in through the Black Gay Men's Network and other same gender loving identities. Yeah, what are some ways that you have to switch up and be dynamic, or find, how have you been able to be able to speak to various groups?
I basically come from my heart and be as naked as possible and only speak for my own experience and say, I don't believe there's a universal person that has universal answers that applies to every universal situation. I think there is, as Black men, there's Black Canadian, Black British, Black Caribbean, Black American, Black South American, but unfortunately, the colorism scale does exist. The spectrum of colorism exists, and the way people interact with it or try to not interact with it, like light skin, dark skin, all the stuff exists. So like, and just infinite gender identities, men, female, trans, non-binary, so it's just, I don't have all the answers. I would never try to say that I'm an expert. I would just say, I have been practicing this so-and-so for X amount of time. This is what works for me. This is what I've observed. This is what I've never observed. And this is, I never try to say that I have all the answers, but if somebody asks me something that I do think that I have a suggestion for, I offer it. And I never, like the concept of a sex expert it's like a little silly to me, because it's like you're kind of like, my idea of expert is like, I could have sex with somebody 10,000 times and I would be an expert with that person. But the moment I make love to the next person, I'm a beginner with that person. I have no history with them. So I always say, like, I've had sex unquantifiable amounts of times. I don't, thousands and thousands of times I think I have entered other people's bodies, but I'm always going to be like, hey, there's going to be a new person I meet this summer that's going to teach me something I've never known before about love and sexuality. So I'm like, I have experience, but I don't consider myself an expert. And it keeps me humble. I don't want to have this big head and be like, oh, I always do this and I can always make everyone come and I always get an erection and I'm always like that's not real to me. I just try to be like, I just speak my honest story.
For sure. And, and being genuine is the best way to be a teacher, right? Because then you're going to be able to strike a chord with individuals in a way that's from a well-meaning place. Yeah. So my last question, and we're getting some questions from Facebook in terms of our little dialogue segment, but so when thinking about the Black Gay Men's Network, how it's developed, we had some initial meetings that kind of brought forth to where we're at now, which were just discussions of, I want to recognize the fact that, I think sometimes we often look to the sky instead of looking around. Certainly people who have been invested in this work, in Canada, in Ontario, in Toronto for decades, right? So we just were not reinventing the wheel, but bringing these discussions back to the table. One of the things that I found really interesting when we first met was, the emphasis on sexual health and how we moved our conversation to say sexual health and pleasure. Oftentimes, those are separated. And certainly, like from a nursing lens, from someone who's working in nonprofit, it's really great that we have all the sexual messaging, PrEP and condoms and you equals you, undetectable equals untransmittable. And, oftentimes, no matter how hard individuals try, it's so hard to bring in that pleasure element involved in it too. So just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to that, or, how do you bring those together in your work?
I love you for bringing it up, brother. I'm going to say something that I either want goddess worshiper or sacred horror on my grave, or this statement. This statement is something that I want I say in almost every interview I can, every space that anybody is willing to listen to it, I believe this statement, and it is: sexual rights are the civil rights of the 21st century. The way that our Black people fought for civil rights for the last 100 years, the 50s and 60s, we fought for the rights just to vote, just for basic jobs, just to walk down the street, to take the bus, to drink water. Now that isn't the totality of humanity. Every human being that is born was born from an intimate act. My father was abusive and was abusive, and I actually wasn't born out of the happiest circumstances with my mother. But hopefully most lives are born out of a healthy, beautiful sexual situation. And it doesn't even have to be a sexual situation. Like, it could be two dads or two moms just assuming, ownership of not ownership, just responsibility of a child that they adopt, and in a loving environment and situation. So I'm saying, like, the rights for every human being, men, women, trans, non-binary, especially people who are not heteronormative and cisgendered and always centered in society, those people have the right to have orgasms, to kiss, to hug, to meet people, to actually have space, to find places in the world where they can find the people that have healthy relationships with them. Like, there is no way we should live in a world where there's no place for Black trans people to find other Black trans people and non-binary people. Like, for us to think that heteronormativity is the only place and it's the only space, it's like a really horrible thing that unfortunately a lot of Black conservative and liberal too, but a lot of Black conservative, and unfortunately I see this is where the problem comes from. It's not the only place that the problem comes from, but the Christian church, or just the church in general, causes a lot of shame with Black people, and we don't feel comfortable in having our natural pleasure, in dancing, in meeting our friends, in being honest with the relationships and happiness that we actually feel when we walk down the street or interact with somebody in public. So if we were to be honest about it, then maybe we could have healthy relationships about it, and we wouldn't have to be abusive or reinforce these really hyper aggressive and hyper masculine and hyper, horrific, like toxic female and toxic male stereotypes about our sexuality. If we could just be like, we could just be honest about it. I mean, that's something that I live, I work on it. I sometimes I have to leave certain spaces because I don't conduct myself in a traditional way, but I really believe it's possible, and it should be available to every single body in the world. Like, I have multiple lovers, and I'm so blessed, and everybody should be able to have. I don't believe everybody should have all their dreams, but everybody should be able to taste some of their dreams.
I love that. I love that. I can't help thinking too of what you're saying, one or two things of how the disability movement has informed a lot about sexuality, and how oftentimes when people specifically with visible disabilities, there's a really great documentary on Netflix called Crip Camp.
I gotta check it. Crip Camp?
Crip Camp, CRIP camp, which was an actual camp that was in New York. And it produced a lot of disability activists that led to the ADA here in the States, but it also branched internationally. But one of the things I really enjoyed about that is the conversations that they had a right to have sex.
Yes.
So thinking about what you're saying about, even not just from a heteronormativity standpoint, but from an ableist standpoint, from a cisgenderism standpoint, all of these things that reinforce, how we're supposed to be getting sex and pleasure and intimacy, right? We really, how important it is to break these down so that we can have these conversations to get the pleasure that we want.
I'd like to quickly throw in, I went to Buddies in Bad Times Theater. It was framed in very different ways, but technically in the media it was called like the wheelchair orgy. That's how it was first made, but it was just like a wheelchair pleasure party that was for people in wheelchairs. And I went there, and I had one of the most magnificent, sacred, beautiful experiences of my life with this person in a wheelchair. We went to a room, and I had to take them out of their wheelchair and like graciously carry them. And they trusted me, and I got to carry them. We went to a safe space. We shared some intimacy. There was oral sex, there was kissing, there was pleasure, and then like I got to help them back into their wheelchair. And it was one of the most magnificent, beautiful experiences of sex I ever had in my life. I didn't have to come and have an orgasm, but as far as connecting to another human being, it was one of the most precious, beautiful things I've ever done. And I'm just like, I love it. I had like sex with somebody in a wheelchair. It was great. So I mean, I'm like, this is just things that I want to experience in my own life because this is my heart. It's not for everybody. If you want to do it, don't think that it's horrible or that you're wrong. Just like see them as a human being and share a beautiful experience with them on a balanced level. Like don't fetishize it, or don't like turn them into like a fucking toy or a doll. It's like they're a person with feelings and desires and dreams just like you, and just share a moment with them, and you'll be surprised how sacred and lovely it could be.
Beautifully stated. Beautifully stated. COVID has not made me, I've never been afraid to cry, but just that statement that you just said is bringing tears to my eyes of just like what it's like to have a balanced, to meet someone where they're at and have, be able to just be honest and connect in a way that is just really passionate. It's, why is it so hard
brother, I tell you, I frame it like this. It's the hardest thing in the world until it's the easiest thing in the world. Like if you really think that it's difficult to tell somebody the truth, it will be difficult. But then the moment where you just say, you know what, I owe you the truth, I owe me the truth, And like, if this relationship is going to be real, it's going to be based off the truth. So like, confess who you cheated on or what you really want to do, your fetishes or dreams or desires. But like, one reason why I never feel shame about any of my sexual is because I come from my heart, and I'm like, I express my desires. There's no manipulation, no exploitation, no abuse. And if they would like it, and they want what I want, and I confess it, then it happens. If they don't want it, I don't manipulate it. I don't chase them down. I don't force them for it. So I'm just like, it wasn't meant to happen. And I can just move on. So whenever it does happen, I'm like, this is, it was supposed to happen because this, we both want the same thing. We both found each other, and we both had a moment of truth where we both discovered, hey, we both want to enjoy this flavor together. You like me, I like you. It's that simple. Awesome. And like, I have a number of lovers, and I'm very blessed to, like, when I find people that are into me but like aren't willing to do poly or have that truth, I don't care how beautiful they are or how rich they are or how whatever. I'm just like, I can't be with you if I can't be true with you. So there's, yeah.
Yeah, powerful statement. Thank you so much. So we do have a couple of questions from Facebook, so we'll start with those. I'll start with a comment. So Eric from Facebook said that he's loving this conversation, which we must be doing something right.
Thank you.
So the first question that we have, which is also from Facebook, someone is asking, what differences would someone see in your work versus traditional commercial porn?
That's a good question. It would be a fine line, because I'm not saying that I don't like intense passion and hard screwing. Like, I love good, deep, passionate penetration, but I also really love slow, romantic intimacy. I love to try to provide the entire spectrum of sharing bodies. One of the things that I like to do in my porn, it's kind of like like the Arnold Schwarzenegger "I'll be back" kind of my own little catchphrase, or well, like my little gimmick is, I like to try to hold hands in every one of my scenes. Like, I try to just have a moment where we're holding each other. So I kiss a lot. I love to provide oral sex a lot. There's not a lot of that in a lot of regular scenes. I love giving women oral sex. But besides that, like, you might see like a trans woman, a queer person just dominant on me, instead of me being the black guy who is always being the dominant person in the scene. So that's another thing I like to try to do. But I don't want to say my stuff is super drastically different than like everything, because it's like, no, I don't slander everything in the mainstream, but certain stuff in the mainstream, they're like, yeah, we have sex, but like, you will never see a woman or the person who is not the black person in a dominant position. You'll see that in my stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta get together and have another conversation, because that's that's a whole other topic, right? Sexual racism and stereotypes, and how that informs, the way we connect with ourselves and others, particularly as Black men in general, but certainly any type of overlap of queerness.
Oh yeah, I've been talking with a bunch of circles and all week in the States on some Zoom calls with some awesome people, Cinnamon Love and Chris Cock, and some awesome people, Lasha Lane and Anna Fox. It's really, really great. Just some great American porn stars who are really trying to break down the racist stereotypes in the biz. It's hard work. We're fighting centuries of ignorance and lots of stereotypes from every sector of society. But
and a billions of dollar industry a year, right? I think that's also it's funny, when people, the stigma around porn is just so, it's to the epitome of what's what I'm looking for,
hypocrisy.
Yeah, the epitome,
Brother, thank
of
you.
hypocrisy.
The epitome of hypocrisy. That's going in a song that I'm going to release this summer. That's my word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I no, you're so right. It is because I don't know an industry in the world that doesn't use sexuality to promote their products. But then when it comes to actual people that are in sex as their product, we are shamed. It doesn't make sense.
yeah. That's actually a nice segue. So we have a second question from Facebook, um, which is, does sex work pay well? I don't want to infer anything to that, but I'm sure you can answer that how you feel comfortable.
Yeah, it's wonderful work if you can get it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't pay. I'm a black male. Like, I don't know. I mean, I love Drake, but I mean, Drake isn't even like, Drake is biracial, Jewish, and privileged with Hollywood and all kinds of other 5, 10 steps levels up. But there's not too many black people that I know that are in any realm of entertainment in Canada that are living off their stuff. Like, I know Drake, I know Cardinal, I know Maestro, I know a few dudes who, Socrates doesn't have a day job, but like, and these guys aren't porn stars. What I'm just saying is, in any realm of black entertainment, I don't know any black journalists that are living off their work. I was a journalist for a long time. I was a hip hop performer for a long time. I never lived off my music. Um, so porn, I say all that to say, porn has easily paid me better than any other industry that I've worked in Toronto. I've taught for a few years after school programs. As I'm saying, I write. I've been writing for 6 years on the internet consistently. Um, so I've worked in a shoe store. I've worked customer service. I've worked as a dishwasher. I've worked as a booker, seating people in restaurants. So there's so many people in porn that wear multiple hats, and porn has paid me better than all of these other jobs, except porn work comes in very rarely. Um, so it's worth it because I have other parts of me that I like to express. So, um, and like, I don't know, maybe in 3 to 5 years, if I'm only doing porn as my main income, I'll see how good it feels. And then if I need to take a break, then I'll take a break and then make an album for 6 months and just focus on hip hop or whatever. So, or just be like Miles Davis and just start painting for 5 years or something. So,
Yeah. And I have a follow-up question to that too, in terms of um, thinking about safety, and also thinking about um, porn and sex work can sometimes um, create demands or put you in situations or ask of things that may
yes,
be
yeah, let's
above
get
and
there.
beyond your ability, or and there's people who sometimes do those things because it's advantageous. They want to maintain a certain career. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes makes it difficult to maybe sometimes turn down work. Um, so what's
Mm.
that process like for you? How do you select or screen work or select clients that, are comfortable, and as, as safety is a relative term, but
Yeah, it
uh,
really is.
yeah, how do you protect yourself? I guess, to simplify that
Uh,
question.
uh, I I screen the best I can to just keep people who don't have balanced economic and physical intentions. I don't give them any access to my body or my private information the best that I can. Um, like there's, I mean, I like to say in every interview that I can, I have privileges as a male bodied individual that any
Mm-hmm.
woman or femme, and definitely certain people in the gay community just don't have, as just being perceived. Like, I'm not a massive man, but like, I'm big enough to walk down the street at night and not fear being jumped, or I don't fear being pressured into most sexual situations with my clients. most of them aren't really going to say, oh, well, I decided I want more. Here's the money, or I'm taking more and victimizing me from that. It's like, I'm very blessed that it hasn't happened to me like yet. And I pray it never happens in my career. But like physically, like I had a minor sexual assault situation that happened on at Hanlon's Point like 5 years ago. A gay guy did something really horrific and rude to me. So it's like, it's not like that just happens in life. Like, it didn't happen on my sex work in my sex work experience. So like, yeah, shit has happened to me. But the thing that happens to me most is um gay men not listening to my ads about my what I'm willing to do and not do as far as what I advertise. Like I get requests to that would definitely violate what I've advertised and what I'm willing to do and like what my boundaries are, and whether they just ask just to like risk and gamble, like fuck it, I'm gonna go for it and just shoot my shot, even though this person kind of says they're willing to do ABC, not XYZ, and then they ask for XYZ and PQ and R, and it's like, yo, I said I'm do ABC. Like, why are you stressing these? So that happens once in a while, mostly through texts. I get texts for people requesting, and I'm like, no, thank you, no, I'm willing to do this, but not that. So those are the closest violations of my privacy and my. So thankfully, I can just delete some of those calls and ignore them.
Yeah, thank you for your honesty with that question. I think that's really real and something for consumers to be very aware of, right? Like, everyone has a right to boundaries and safety. And just because you work in a particular profession does not mean that you get to break those boundaries. Really, really real. We have another question from Facebook. In referring to your quote, "hooker with a heart of gold," are there other sex workers sharing your viewpoint?
Yes and no. I mean, I think I personally feel that sex workers are the most magnificent, profound people on the planet, because I think it's one of the few, because sexuality is everything to me. It's the one thing that is everything. I'm not saying it's like the peak of everything, but they say that, sex work is kind of the world's oldest profession. And so I'm saying that there's sexuality that pops up in everything. So there's so many types of us. There's one. Sex workers have awareness of finances. They have awareness of fashion. They have awareness of politics because the laws keep changing around us. They have awareness of the streets, literally, because they know safe places to go, like places to bathe, how to live overnight. Like, they know survival tactics. They know stuff about jails and prison. They know stuff about co-workers. They know stuff about police. Like they know how to like look sexy in one environment and then neutralize their sexuality in a totally different environment when they have to be safe. Like, sex workers are the most magnificent people to me. And like, I have my own perceptions and beliefs around it. Like, I like to involve religion in my sexuality, for the part where I say that I'm a goddess worshiper, and sexuality is my heaven on earth and my sacredness as far as my religion. Like, that's, so I'm like, not every sex worker believes that, and not every sex worker definitely has to believe that. Like, there's sex workers who are like, this is a job, I am married, I have kids, I show up and I do my work, I provide a release for my clients, or a space where they can talk for 1 hour. It's a transaction, I go home. This isn't spiritual or artistic, or this isn't even political for me. This is just capitalism. And that person has every right to approach their sex work just like that. I respect them. I respect them, even though I don't approach it like that. Like, they may or may not respect me, but like, we should both be able to totally exist. And yeah, I love them all. It's just like, I like to say, like, I wish I wish that I was told when I was 14 years old that it's cool to be with a sex worker. One of the worst things that I think all young people can learn is that like it is shameful to be with a sex worker when you're in your teens or when you're like old enough to do it. Like some people used to say like, oh, you're the biggest failure in life if you have to like pay for sex. It's like that's ridiculous. If you break something or if you need a professional in society, you pay for a professional. If you need a good lawyer, you pay for a good lawyer. If you need a good mechanic, you pay for a good mechanic. If your sexual plumbing is not working, pay for a sexual plumber that is good.
I like
And like your sexual plumber is not from school or not from the government or not, your sexual educator, teacher, guide
yeah,
is a sex worker.
I like that, I like that. Um, that also carries on to another question that we're getting from Facebook. And following up with that is what advice would you give to consumers of porn who only try to emulate what they see on film while suppressing their sexual wants and needs?
Interesting. Yes. That I suppose that is kind of a dilemma in modern society. A lot of guys choking women and like trying to come in their face without even asking their partner if they're into that stuff, because they're like, oh, that's what I saw in most of the porn that I saw. Like they just grabbing girls and choking them and like thinking that every single woman on the planet wants a facial. Like that is ridiculous. I would say, like, I love the concept of a moment of truth. And I'm just like, if you don't have a genuine moment of truth where your heart shows up, where your ego takes a super back seat and is not manipulating the conversation, where you actually do the self inventory and just be like, what do I really need? What do I want? What, 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 uh, what do I have to give for this relationship to continue? What do I truly have to provide this person, and what should they provide me for this relationship to continue? If you have those conversations in your relationship, you can be like, well, I need a couple phone calls a week. I'd like to see you these few times a week. And like, it's not like framing it in a structure, but at some point people should have the awareness of being like, you know what, like when I see you, I'd like to have sex with you. Or like, if you have to be so blunt, you'd be like, I need sex like once a week, or like maybe once a month if they don't have a high sex drive. Like I have a much higher sex drive, but like just knowing what your physical and emotional and intellectual and desires are. If you can't have those conversations with people, then that's when you'll start doing stuff like reverting to porn and doing porn things, or whatever or like the things that your boys tell you, or whatever is popular in society, something in some dumb movie or some dumb sitcom, just perpetuating some silly ideal that isn't what the relationship needs. So you just got to have that moment of truth with yourself, and then have a moment of truth with your partner and be like, what are we looking for? And like, can we find it together? Can I give you what you need, and can I give back and forth? So
Yeah, it overlaps with a lot of things that you've already brought to the table, right? Honesty, um, paying a professional. Like if you recognize that, what you're watching is not indicative of your current sex life, then there are professionals, there are sex workers, there are people such as yourself, polyamorous counselors that you can pay and, um, have healthy relationship or conversations and sessions to work through that, right, and find that honest place of balancing what you want versus fantasy.
it's so possible. There are places, there are people willing to do the work. There's opportunities. It's just a lot about showing up with your heart, and just not, it's not about perfection, not at all. It's never about that. It's just about confession. It's just being like, even if it's just like, I'm a mess, I've been I've been abused, I've been abusive, I've been raped, I've never been a rapist, but maybe somebody, I wish a rapist would go and be like, break his heart open and just be like, I need to stop perpetuating the cycle. I've hurt people, I have violated people sexually, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and I want to stop. I need help. Like, just burying it is not going to make anything better. It's just going to just make more Bill Cosby's and Ansel Elgor's, and like even Justin Bieber was just yesterday. People are saying Justin Bieber was molesting and abusing people, and like R. Kelly, where Russell Simmons. There's just the countless list of people who look positive and are doing great things and donating money to society, but then you get them privately and they're molesting and abusing their secretaries and closest coworkers and stuff. And this is incredibly toxic. So I'm just yeah, there's just such a lot of work to do, and I really, confession and truth is just naked honesty is something that I encourage people to seek.
100%. So I'm just doing a time check. We have is it okay if we go about 5-10 minutes over?
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I'm definitely, I have the time, and I actually, something happened today that I kind of want to document in this and capture in this, something that is very relevant and applicable to the whole situation. But I want to answer a question first, if there's anything.
We have two questions that I'm going to ask. One we kind of addressed, so hopefully we can speak to it quickly, and then I think the second question that we got is a good way to go into final thought. So
Cool.
I want you to finish your thought first, and then we'll get to these last two questions.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to, since it's Father's Day, in February of this year, I am pretty much out to everybody in my whole world about being a sex worker, being queer, and just being who I am. My family knows, my friends know, my coworkers know, except my father in Jamaica. He knew that I did sex work, but he didn't know everything about like some of my queer identity, or he didn't fully acknowledge some of my sex work history. And so this year in February, some things were happening. I was starting an art show that I did in March. I did an art gallery at the Freedom Factory, and it was my first solo art show showing my photography. Quasi's pictures were in it. Shout out Quasi's beautiful art, Remy Darling, and some other photography. So I let my father know in Jamaica, like, hey, I'm doing an art gallery and I'm showing my body as a sex worker and as a sexual artist. And he was so ignorant about it. He was homophobic, he was disrespectful, he slandered it, he all but disowned me from the family, and not even from the family, because my mother would divorce them. But my father just was like, you're dead to me. I cut you off. I can't believe. He's like, you're a disgrace. You're a male whore. You're a slut. This is disgusting. You do sex work. You sell your sexuality. And I'm like, I'm honest. It's professional. It's legal. I don't hurt anybody. I'm helping people. I have no shame or fear. I am not a Christian. I'm getting paid for my dreams. There is not a single thing you can stand on to try to criticize me. I don't feel bad about a single thing in any of my actions. And I wish you weren't so ignorant about this. If you want to cut me off, it is your loss, not mine. So I was like, wow, my father wasn't able to hear where I was at. My mother has mostly been able to hear it. She's been 99.9% supportive. And the rest of my family's been cool with me being a sex worker. So I've been doing it for 8 years, and I'm saying all this to say my father like cut me off in February, and I was like, anybody that doesn't want me or doesn't accept me, I am good with saying goodbye to them. I speak from my truth. I come from my heart. I don't hurt anybody. I don't abuse anybody. I'm so comfortable. I sleep amazingly at night, knowing that I'm not hurting any of my lovers, and that I have 10 lovers, and that I do porn, and that I'm still a good man and a good lover. So I was like, anybody that's not cool with porn or sex work or me or black queerness, bye, good night, goodbye, bye Felicia forever. So I'm saying all this to say, my own father was cut off for the first time for me in February. And about an hour before this call, when I was walking around getting ready, it was Father's Day. So I just randomly was like, hey, whatever. I literally just texted Happy Father's Day to him in Jamaica. And then right before I got back here, I got an amazing message from him. He was like, yeah, he was like, it's good to hear from you. Family is all thinking about you, their Canadian cousin. And so, yeah, he just thankfully didn't acknowledge any of the ignorant bullshit that he said and just was like, just replied to me and just continued to.
Nice.
He still have a little something with my father. Like I don't expect him to be accepting of gay black energy and I don't think he'll fully accept me as a sex worker, but it's not over yet. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's it's really personal, and know that that's noted and appreciated. And I'm glad that I, you were able to have, whatever this message was communicated. I'm glad that there was some positivity and hopefully a groundwork for who's to say, and the way. Certainly we could have a whole other discussion about, being Black and queer and parenting, for sure. And yeah, and we want to be loved and accepted for who we are. And that includes our parents, which is often difficult sometimes.
Which is, yeah. And I guess the too long didn't read version of that would be in sex work, it's often you have your blood family and then you have your love family. And you have the people that are your, especially queer, Black, gay, lesbian, trans. Some of us, all we have, like our other real family, are the people who accept us for who we are. And, like,
yeah, sure.
I'm just saying, like, I'm in a position where I was able to, like, I'm comfortable enough where I can cut off any blood family or any other family that doesn't accept me as I am, because I want to be as serious as Malcolm X was. That's why I chose the name Malcolm Lovejoy. Like, if you don't see the importance of this work, like, I'm sorry, love and truth and justice is the most important thing in the world. Like, we have to fight for it for everybody. So that's what I'm doing in my porn, in my writing, in my everything, in my conversations and my constant ramblings. So yes, let's get to these last two questions. But yeah, thanks, man.
Nice. So let's this first one first. We touched on a lot of it. It hasn't been asked directly. And given an opportunity to speak directly to it. What has been your experience as a Black woman in the industry? Have you dealt with racism from clients, other sex workers? And that's been a thing. We've played a lot about sexual racism and how you navigate boundaries, how you select work and things like that. But anything else that you would like to add to that question?
Yeah. I haven't really talked about the work itself too much. Yeah, there is like this weird, hyper positive and hyper negative reality to being a Black man in porn. Like, sometimes it kind of works in my favor in Canada. Sometimes I'm the only one in the room. So it's, I mean, hey, I feel like I offer something anyways, even if there is 10 other Black guys. Like, I take care of my body. My dick looks good, my arms look good, my ass look good, my face is okay. Whatever. Like, I just feel like I have something to offer, whether you see me as a Black man or you see me as a man or just as a pleasure provider, however you want to see me or hire me. And it's there's lots of racism by the customers, there's lots of racism by my coworkers, there's lots of racism by the society that offers it. But the worst thing is really the government and the hypocritical structures around, like, in the society that wants to exploit sex workers and exploit sexuality and exploit beauty, but never respect the people that are actually on the front lines of doing it and providing it to people for real as safely as humanly possible. So like we have a level as a sex worker, like sex workers have the level of standards that most people don't comprehend and don't practice. And like I was getting tested so many times at my like my local clinic. They're like, please stop coming. Like you're good. Your tests have been good for years. You don't have any STIs. Like you don't need to get tested every week or two. And I'm like, I'm trying to provide the most safe body I can when I can just literally any human being that comes to me that looks for intimacy, I want to make sure that I only have them leaving with happy fantasies, memories of orgasms, memories of good conversation, memories of eating food together. I don't want them to go home with an STI. I don't want them to go home with a memory of verbal abuse. So I put in a lot of work, and it's worth it. I'm a romantic. I like to say I'm a professional love maker. Like it's my job. I like it. It's like it's fun. It's cool.
Yeah, and it's a privilege to do what you love, for sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So last question, which we've had some really great segues and overlaps of
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good one to end on. And you've touched on it somewhat too in terms of where we're at with the current public health pandemic, COVID. Um, so how does the pandemic has impacted your work? And what tools have you developed to decrease risk or help prevent vulnerability to COVID? And I think what you were saying previously in terms of sexual health testing, because we know that's been very limited during the public health pandemic, certainly how it's impacting all individuals and certainly sex workers. Um, yeah, so any, whatever else you'd like to add or share about that?
Yeah, I've really haven't really seen anybody. And I wasn't doing the Zoom calls like a lot of people were doing. I have this my own personal issues with proximity and stuff. Like I'm a very tactile, touch focused person. So sometimes Zoom calls would kind of like crush my delicate little heart a little because I am just like, oh, it would hurt me to gush so much emotion at people and not be able to touch. So I wasn't, there was some sex workers that were providing companion dates through Zoom calls over the pandemic, and I wasn't doing that. I was just kind of showing up in other ways for some people where I could. I was doing just regular phone calls, and I had a few of my partners that I was still seeing. My partners that I did not have any roommates or children, and people who weren't immunity compromised. I was seeing them, and I didn't start actually active until sex work until last week. I actually had my first client, and it wasn't even a full-on sexual situation. A person just wanted to have a situation with, they just wanted pure hugging and conversation. They said maybe a little tiny hug, like a cuddle, and maybe a tiny kiss, no sexual penetration. So they came over, came in, washed their hands, asked for a shower, provided them with antibacterial soap, and we like followed protocol. It was very, very safe, and I felt good about it. So like I haven't stopped doing sex work technically, but I also slowed down drastically. And I just sincerely believe that sex workers are essential workers on the front line, just like nurses and doctors. We're just not in the hospitals, but emotionally and psychologically and socially and then sexually, as soon as it's safe, like they're providing a service that is vitally essential to society. And the last thing I'll end on is like 2020 is a really interesting year to reflect on the importance of intimacy, because we just had the longest dry spell in human history, maybe. and and it really speaks to everyone's right to hug. And like you don't have to fuck. We're not talking about sex, but why don't we have a right to hug? As a society, we should all like if we don't live in a society that is like germically clean enough to hug, like what is going on? Like we need to fix that. We need hugs and handshakes and kisses and basic human contact. This is like vital to life. You may not have a sex drive as high as me and want to do porn and have 10 lovers and fuck as much as you can and have magnificent sex this morning. Thank you to my lovely lover who, but yes, you have a right to hug and kiss. And so hopefully we can get back to it, and we'll see. We'll see.
We will see. I think obviously we could talk all day and all night, but I think that that is a beautiful way to end this conversation. Malcolm, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your patience, for your graciousness and honesty. It's noted and appreciated. Thank you so much to the people who joined us via Facebook Live, and thank you for all the questions.
Thank you.
And also want to note too is that you're not just a sex worker or a porn star, right? You're an artist, you're a journalist, you're a hip hop artist. So also keep in mind you bring a lot of dynamicism. So thank you for bringing that total life experience to us. If folks want to learn more about you and your work, where can they reach out to you or find you at?
They could find me at malcolmlovejoy.net. They could look me up on YouTube. Lots of Mindbender videos. Mindbender Supreme at Bandcamp is my music. Adam U. Stewart, Addie Stewart is, if you just Google that, there's a rabbit hole of hip hop journalism and sexuality talks. And I got a lot of art. I haven't organized it all, but under the name Mindbender Supreme or Malcolm Lovejoy, you can just generally Google me and find me. And this is a year that's very, very special. I feel like it's time to reset society and rebuild it in a new way, reduce the anti-Blackness, reduce the shame and stigma around sexuality and intimacy, and just create the closest thing to paradise on earth that we've all possibly could collectively do together, because what else is there to do with our lives? And yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I have to thank you, Robert. I thank you for asking beautiful questions, and I thank you for your patience and hearing me and my passionate rambles and my deep information. There's a lot of work to do and a lot of sharing. So I'm glad. Like, if there was a bunch of me out there, I wouldn't have to talk so much. I'd be like, refer to that guy, refer to that guy, refer to that guy. But I'm doing my best to kind of combine a lot of thought and energy and passion and wisdom and walk a path that I wish I saw more people on. So thank you for giving me space and time to share who I am.
My pleasure. And on behalf of myself and also the Black Gay Men's Network of Ontario, all I can say is thank you. It was a pleasure. And hopefully, obviously this conversation will be archived as well. So make sure you look this up on our Facebook page and also our website, BGMN.ca. And we'll be back next Sunday with another presentation from 5 to 6. I think we're doing some DJs and doing some music sets. And on that note, everyone have a wonderful day. Once again, happy Father's Day. Black Lives Matter, Black Trans Lives Matter, Black Queer Lives Matter. Let's work in solidarity with our Indigenous family members to bring about the change that we'd like to see. And have a wonderful day. Thanks,
Brother Robert, I just wanted to say with my own voice to the Black Gay Men's Network of Ontario, to Kwesi, to Robert, to anybody who listened, to all Black queer energy, to Black trans energy, to those who are not with us because they've been murdered by these horrific racists, to those who are with us alive, and to our ancestors, I thank you all. And this is so much love. I love you, Robert, and thank you for being your beautiful self.
I love you, Malcolm. Love you so much. And last note is that please make sure to fill out the evaluation. The link is in the Facebook comments. It's very important. I wish I would have said that before, before these beautiful love messages, but it's also important as well. Malcolm, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. All beautiful things to you today.
You too, brother. You too. You too. Oh, you made my day. You made my day. Thank you.
All righty. Take care, everyone. Thanks again.
Peace.